Welcome everyone. Mm. Welcome everyone. I hope you are all doing good. So, I checked yesterday's assignment, and yeah, most of you did good on that assignment. But I'll make the solution available later today. So yeah, that was the climax of INF 164. Other than that, everything it's easier or it's better. But yeah, multi-form application, that was the challenging part. And arrays of objects, that was the challenging part. But other than that, everything is just easy. Maybe polymorphism can be a little bit tricky, but everything else is going to be easy. Web development, it's easy. Then arrays, those ones are easy. Data grid views and arrays, those ones are a little bit easy. But multi-form applications, they can be tricky. So today we are going to move to a different part. So I'm going to refer to the slides. They explained very well. So we are going to start with the 4 pillars of object-oriented programming. So before starting with the 4 pillars of object-oriented programming, we are just going to review the console applications. So we have 2 types of applications, or we have 2 ways in which a user can interact with a computer. So a user can interact with a computer. So we have a user, then we have our computer. So they can interact through the computer through the graphical user interface. So this is the graphical user interface, or they can interact with the computer through the console, or you can call it the command line interface. So you don't have to know any theory here. They won't ask anything. What's the difference between this? What's this? Just know that a user can interact with the computer through the graphical user interface, and the user can interact with the computer through the command line interface, or as they call it, the console. Then the next thing that we can consider, let's see how are we going to build console applications. So to build a console application, you open your Visual Studio, then you create a project. Then I don't know why it's taking time to load. Then instead of Windows Form app, you have to choose this console app. Then you say next. Then you give it a name. Maybe for example, let's call it console example. Then we are going to say next. Then here you can choose do not use top level whatever. Then you can create the application. So this console one, it seems as if it's taking more time than the forms. So this is a basic console form application. So this is similar to your the first program that you find, the form CS file. So this is the same thing, but now we are using the console instead of actual graphical user interfaces. So when you create a console application, the important thing is the main function or the main method. So the main method is a method that is automatically executed when you run your console application. So when I run this program, the code that will be executed is anything that is under the main method. So if I execute this, I don't know if any of you guys did cos 132. If you guys did cos 132, that's what they normally use. They use the console. So you see the hello world was printed because of this line of code. So the console.writeLine. So we have two types of methods that you have to know. Other than that, it's normal C#. So we have the console.writeLine method. So it takes a string, or you can say text. So this is similar to what? In the graphical user interface, it's similar to the message box dot show. Then we know that message box dot show, it takes a string, or you can say it takes text, and it displays. The main purpose of these methods is to display text to the user. So if you say message box.show hello world, it's going to say that text. If you say console.writeLine hello world, it's going to display that text. With the message box, it displays the message in a message dialog, but with the console, it displays the message in a console instead of a dialog. Then we can press any key, then this application should close, or it doesn't close in this case. It says press any key to close, but it did close. So it's just going to close. So that's the main purpose of this console based application. You can use the WriteLine even if you want to calculate the sum. We are back to the normal C#. So maybe you have two numbers, int x equals to 10, then maybe y equals to 20. Then let me remove this line of code. Maybe we want to calculate the sum. Then we say int sum is equals to x plus y. Then if we say console.writeLine, then we display, maybe we can say the sum is equals to, then we can concatenate the normal sum. This is it's similar to message box.show. It's going to display sum is equals to, then it's going to calculate the sum. So if I run this application, so it's going to display the sum is 30. So that's the main purpose of the console application. The other thing that you might need to know, well, if you don't want to display this, you can do an intermediate step the way you would do it in the graphical user interface. Maybe you say string output is equals to sum, then you say is equals to, then you add the sum. Instead of doing sum, you can always say output. So this is the same thing. It's going to calculate the sum. It's going to calculate the sum, which is just the concatenation of the sum and the 30 that we got here. So it's just going to display 30 in the console. So we are going to have the normal 30, sum is equals to 30. Even if you wanted to maybe add multiple things, let me close this. It's not necessarily .NET framework. I think you have to install something different. On your PCs, it might not work, but if it works, this means it uses the .NET framework. But if it doesn't work, you have to install this. You have to update. I'll show you how to update that to accommodate the console. But on the labs, it should work without installing anything. So what if we wanted a multiple line output? So we can say string output is equals to, then we say x is equals to, then we can add x. Like the way this is back to the normal way you would do it. The difference is that now we are outputting it in a, instead of a text, rich text box, list box, what we are outputting the result in a console. So we can say output plus equals to, maybe y is equals to, then we can add y, then we can add a new line, then we can output plus equals to. You can even use those, the normal dollar thing, maybe x plus, then I'm going to say y, then I'm going to say is equals to maybe sum. You can use the normal string concatenation, or you can use this $1. This $1 makes things easy because you don't have to have many quotation marks. You only have 1, 2. Then this is just going to say x is equals to 10, new line, y is equals to 20, new line. Then it's going to display 10 plus y is equals to the sum, which is 30. That is going to output the result in a console output. So if I execute this, so it's going to do exactly as I said. It's just x equals to 10, y equals to this plus this equals to 30. So here you can write a normal C# code, but you don't have the controls. You don't have the graphical user interface. You don't have txt what. You don't have nud what. So now let's see what to do. So we are done with the console.write. Another method, you can ask yourself, if we don't have text boxes, numeric up downs and what, how are we then going to get the input from the user? That's where the console.readline comes. It's similar to reading from files sort of, but it's not reading from files. So we have console.readline. Like that. So this method gets the input from the console and returns it as a string. It's always a string. If I search there, you can also use Google console.readline. Then you can say C#. It's going to show you. Normally I prefer Microsoft. So it shows you definition. It reads the next line of characters from the standard input stream. Standard input stream is the console. Then what does it return? It returns the next line of characters, or null if no more lines are available. Normally here they are referring to the normal one, but let's use it and see. So let's say you wanted to write an application that will get a name from the console and display that name, even though it doesn't make that much sense for now. So you are going to have a string name where you can store your name there. Then you are going to say, okay, how are we going to get the name? So first you have to tell the user. So you have to tell the user. To tell the user, you say write line, and then you say maybe enter your name. Then you can say name is equals to, then you say console.readLine. Then let's see, why are we getting an error, a warning actually. Or if the user doesn't enter anything, it can be like a null thing. So let's see. Then we are going to display their name. Then we are going to say maybe your name is, then we are going to say name. Then I feel like they were supposed to show you the console thing before they started the Windows Phone, because now you guys are used to the text boxes. This will be confusing sort of. So here we are getting the name from the user using console.readLine. Here we are displaying, we must tell the user what to do. So this is a prompt. We have to prompt the user to enter their name. Then we can read the name and store it inside this variable. Then after reading the name, we can display that name. So let's see how it works. Maybe something, then we say enter. So you see it's going to display your name. So this is similar. I can say, you guys, you can assume that this is the same as maybe name is equals to txt name.text. This is the same thing. This is similar. So what if we wanted a number? Let's say we wanted to write a simple application that will take a number and determine if the number is positive or negative. So let's say int number, let's set it to 0 by default. So we are going to check, we are going to tell the user to enter a number. So we can say console.write. If you say write, it's not going to have a new line. The difference between write and write line is that write has a new line. Write doesn't have a new line, write line has a new line. So I can say name. Enter a number. So here we are telling the user to enter a number. Then we can read whatever the user is going to type. So we can say number is equals to console.read. If you want, you can use the read. I think read reads characters. If you just say read, it's going to read like an integer. But if this confuses you, you can just say read line. You can use the same thing. But the catch is that the read line reads a string, so you have to convert this to int. So I can say convert to int 32. So if I don't want to confuse myself, I can always use the read line. Then I will always convert to whatever. I know that the read line will read whatever the user input as a string, but we want to convert that number to a string. So that's why we say convert to int32. Then after, we can use if statements. If number is greater than 0, then we can say, we can display console.writeLine. Maybe we can say positive. Then we can use an else if number is less than 0. We are going to say negative. Then we are going to say negative. Then the alternative part is the else part. Maybe console.writeLine, we are going to say let's just say 0 instead. So let's analyze the code. So first we declared our number. Then we are going to prompt the user to enter a number. Then we are going to read that number from the console. We know that the read line is a string, so we have to convert that to an integer. It's going to read the number as a string, but we have to convert that to an integer. Then after reading the number, we compare, is it positive, negative, or is it 0? So let me close this and run the application. You see, it says enter a number. That was the prompt, console.write. Then if we enter a number, maybe 20, it's going to convert that 20 to an integer, which is 20. Then it's going to check, is 20 greater than 0? 20 is greater than 0. Hence, we are going to execute this. We are not going to execute other lines of code. Then we have positive. So other things that you can do, we can, let's say we have an array. You can even create normal arrays. Is equals to, let's say, -10, 20, maybe 30, then 40, maybe -5. This is my array. Then I'm going to use a for loop to count how many negative numbers and how many positive numbers. This is 154. Int maybe positive equals to 0, negative equals to 0. I can also 0 is equals to 0. Then I'm going to loop through the array. So we are looping through the array. We can even use the for each loop or the normal for loop. For each int maybe number in the array. So for each number in the array, I'm going to copy this if statement. So if the number is greater than 0, we are going to increment positive p++. So for each number in the array, we know that number will start here. It's going to check if that number is greater than 0, we are going to do that. But I'm going to explain that in a minute. So else if it's negative, we are going to increment negative. Otherwise, we are going to increment 0. So let me increase the size of the array. Maybe put at least 1 0. Then after the for each loop, we can just maybe determine the output. String output is equals to, then I'm going to use this. So number of negative is equals to, then I'm going to say n, then number of positive numbers, and then I'm going to say p, then number of zeros, then I'm going to say 0. So this is just the normal, or you can use the normal concatenation, the one with plus plus whatever. Then I'm going to output console.writeLine output. So let's see how the application works. So we have an array of numbers. Then we initialize the number of positive numbers to 0, negative numbers to 0, zeros to 0. So we are going to say for each number, this is a for each loop. So for each number in the array, we are going to do what? We are going to check if that number is greater than 0, less than 0, equals to 0. So let's see how are we going to execute the loop. First iteration, our number will be 10. So we check, is this greater than 0? No. Is it less than 0? Yes. We are going to increase negative by 1. So I have one negative number. Next iteration, this number will store 20. So we check, is 20 greater than 0? Yes. We are going to increase positive by 1. So I have 1, 1. Then next iteration, we have number contains 30, because for each number in the array, we move from one number to the next number. So we are going to say 30. Is 30 greater than 0? Yes, 30 is greater than 0. We are going to increment positive. So positive now is 2. So we have 2, 1. Next iteration, 40. Is 40 greater than 0? Yes, 40 is greater than 0. Increment positive. So our positive will be 3. So we have 3, 1. This Z is still 0 because we haven't encountered any zeros. The next iteration, number is negative 5. Is it greater than 0? No. Is it less than 0? Yes. So n will be incremented to 2. Next iteration, number equals to 0. Check, is it greater than 0? No. Is it less than 0? No. Hence 0 will be incremented. Now we don't have any elements, so we have 3, 2 and 1. So I'm expecting here to be 3, 2 and 1. Since I started with a negative, it's going to be 1, then 2, 3. Then it's going to display that string in a console. So that's the use of the console. So if I execute this, so you are going to have this, which is correct. The only thing I didn't do is put a space here. So I didn't put a space. That's why that 0 is like that, 0, 1, because there's no space here. So those are the basics of the console. That's what you need to know actually, how to console.write. That's the most important part. And reading from the console. Then you know that any code, the code that you write in the main function is going to be executed. Then the advantage of the console is that you can test your program quickly. That's why in the test they say you can use Visual Studio if you want, because with the console you can test your code very quickly. So let's say you have a simple class. You can even create the class in the same thing. You can say class, maybe rectangle, or you can name it whatever. Then you can have, if you want, you can have your private attributes or what, but for me, I'm just going to make them public. Even private, it doesn't matter actually. So maybe private mlength, or I have to put the data type mlength, then private double mwidth. Then I'm going to do the properties public double length. Then I'm going to do the get and set. Oh, I forgot. Then public double width get and set. So I can say public, um, maybe the constructor rectangle. So since this is a simple thing, I can just use the overloaded constructor double width like that. Then I'm going to say length is equals to length, width is equals to width. So this is basic. You have your attributes, you have your properties, you have your constructor. Then you can have other methods, maybe public, maybe calculate area, double area. Then we are going, it's going to return the sum, the product. So it's going to say length times width. Then the other thing you can have is public, maybe, is it parameter or perimeter? I think it's perimeter. Then it's going to return the perimeter of the, and I have to specify the data type. So we are going to return the perimeter of a triangle. So it's length plus width. So this is a simple class. You see how quickly it was to create a class with this console thing. That's why we can say you can use Visual Studio. So I successfully created my class, which has everything that I need. Then let's say I want to test if this class is working. To test if this class is working, the code is going to go where? In the main function. So maybe I can create a rectangle object. Maybe you can say rectangle, then R is equals to U. Since we don't have a default constructor, we have to initialize that. We have to have a length and a width. Maybe rectangle. Maybe 2 by 4, like that. Then we can test if it's working. We can say maybe string output is equals to, then we can say maybe my width of my rectangle is equals, plus, or since I use this one, I don't need the plus. So how can we access the width of this rectangle? We have to specify the object, which is R dot, then we have to specify the property, which is width. So we have to say R dot width. So this is from the Monday session, I think. This is just basic accessing of objects. Then we can move to the output plus equals to, then we can say length. Then we are going to say how can we access the length of the rectangle? R dot length. Then we are going to say new line. So as a reminder, when we say rectangle equals to new rectangle, what's happening in memory? We are going to have this R, which is pointing to a new rectangle object, which has a width and a length. So this is an actual object. Then we check. What did we pass? We passed 2 and 4. This method is a constructor method. We are going to check, do we have a constructor that receives a 2 by 4 thing? Yes, it receives the length, which is 2. So it's going to assign length to 2. Then the width, which is 4. So that 4 is going to be stored in the width. So we are going to have 2 by 4. So we have 2 for this, then 4. Then how do we access? Here we are trying to access, when we are trying to print output plus equals to, when we say R dot width, it's going to go to this object R. Then it's going to access the width, which is 4. Then when we are trying to access the length, we are going to specify R dot length. So we are going to refer to this R. Then when we say dot length, we are accessing this block. So that's what we have here. Then The next thing that we can do is to calculate the area. So if we say output plus equals to, then we say area is equals to, then how do we get the area of a rectangle? You say r dot, how do we call the method? We say r dot area. It doesn't receive anything. If it was receiving something, we were going to pass those values, but here it doesn't receive anything, so we are going to say r dot area like that. Or alternatively, you can do it step by step. So let me see. You can do it step by step. You can say, okay, double. If you want this var, if you see var, don't get scared. If you see this var, then area maybe is equals to, how do we get the area of the rectangle? R dot area. So we have this var object. Those who did JavaScript in high school, maybe they know that var in JavaScript, it is used to represent any variable. It detects automatically the type, the data type, based on what you assign it to. In this case, we have r dot area. So r dot area returns a double. So this means the data type of this area object is going to be a double, and it's going to store. Or alternatively, you can say area equals to r dot area. But I'm just showing you the usage of this var. Don't be scared when you see the var thing. Don't say, yeah, we never did the var thing. They expect you, and what they expect is that you went through their lecture slides. So I don't know why my Visual Studio is not responding, but let me check here what's happening. So let me dismiss this. So the dollar sign is the same. It's, if you don't want to concatenate many times, you can just use the dollar sign. If you don't want to say plus, what, and quotation marks, you can use the dollar sign. Then I guess this was back. If the user enters the string for that old program, the program is going to crash because you cannot convert a text. That's why you should use try catch. If you see here on this, they used the try catch. So to prevent that, you could have put that code in a try catch block. Then let me see. So as I was saying, don't be scared when you see this var. Why is it not commenting out now? Oh, it does. So this var is the same. The var, you use it when you don't, like, when you want to detect the data type automatically, when you don't care that much about the data type. But it's possible to use the var. So instead of doing it like this, we can instead just say area. We can calculate the area first, then we can say area, or we can use it directly. So I'm going to say, to do the same, plus equals to. So this dollar sign, instead of saying for example perimeter, so instead of saying perimeter, then I'm going to say plus, then I'm going to say r dot perimeter. I can use the dollar sign instead. I can say output plus equals to, then I can say dollar sign, then string, then I'm going to say perimeter, then I'm going to say space. So instead of saying plus outside, the dollar sign allows you to write these inside the quotation marks. But the catch is that you must have this opening and closing braces. So I can say r dot perimeter. So that's the purpose of the dollar sign. It prevents you from having plus plus. Normally you can have multiple pluses and many quotation marks, but it allows you to write whatever variable. And here I made a mistake inside quotation marks. So let me remove this. So now I can display the details of my rectangle. Then I'm going to say output like that. So this is just going to create a new rectangle object, and it's going to display the result of that rectangle object. So as we saw, this one will get the width, this one will get the length. So double area equals to r dot area. It's going to call this method area on what? On this object, which is r, which has a length of 2 and a width of 4. So it's going to return the product of these, which is 8. So it's going to return 8. So here we are going to have area, which is 8. Then perimeter, r dot perimeter. It's going to, I guess my perimeter was a typo. So let me fix that. So it's going to say r dot perimeter. It's going to call this method on this r object. So it's going to say 2 multiplied by the sum of that, which is 16. So it must display 16. It's going to return 16. So here we are going to have 16. Then we are going to display the output in a console. Then when I run this, we are going to have this. The reason I have this 8 and what is that I didn't put a new line. That's why I have that direction. So you have to put a new line for the new line to appear. So let me close this. So far we are still back in lecture 1, I think, for OOP, because we are just doing the normal classes but using the console. So I hope it makes sense, this thing of using the console. You must be familiar with the console. Then one last thing that I can demonstrate its methods. So to create a method, let's say you wanted to create a method that will calculate the sum of 2 numbers, maybe 2 integers. So you must have public, the return type, which is int. Then I'm going to name the method maybe sum. Then it's going to receive x and y. Then we know that it's returning the sum x plus y. So this is a basic method. Then again, we want to call it on the main function. Maybe we want to test it. So we can say int, maybe a equals to 10, b equals to 20. Then we say console dot write line. Then we are going to say sum is equals to, then we are going to add maybe sum of x. So sum of x and y. So I mean of a and b instead, not a x and y, because we don't have an a and b. So sum of a and b. So let's see. As you can see, we know that in Windows Form this is valid, like this is completely valid, but in the console based application you are going to get an error. If you look there, you will see that an object reference is required for the non-static field method or property. So to fix this, normally you will see public, or is it static public, static. So you are going to see the static public what it doesn't make any difference. The difference it makes, it's for this method to be executable in the main function or in the main method. So if you see static public don't panic, it's just the normal method. They wrote that method in a console based application, that's why it has static. It doesn't change how this method executes. So we have two variables a and b. So we are passing A, which is 10, B, which is 20. We know that A will be copied to, we are going to call sum with this. So this sum is going to be called like this: A, which is 10, B, which is 20. Then we are going to pass that 10 to X. So X will contain 10 and Y will contain 20. So it's going to return the sum, which is 10 plus 20, which is 30. So here at the end, this whole thing is just 30. So it's going to display the sum, which is 30. Then let me execute that. So you see the sum is 30. So don't get scared when you see the static what? Static, it means that they wrote this method on a console-based application. Then, yeah, then on part 2 we are going to do inheritance and encapsulations. Those are the first two pillars of object-oriented programming. And we are going to start at 10 parts. Don't join there at 10 parts. You must join there before 10 parts. So I guess that's it for this part. We will continue with inheritance and encapsulation. So we are going to continue at 10 parts. We are starting. If you guys don't have questions, you can leave.